Good evening, Cherries fans. Good evening, fans of Leeds United. Good evening, fans of Leicester City. And good evening, fans of Everton. This is the preview of the relegation battle down at the bottom of the Premier League here on Up the Cherries and All Departments. Now, I do have three fans with me. All these have been recorded over the past couple of days as well. But we have Connor from the Toffee Blues, we have Chris from Leicester Till I Die TV, and we've got Cate from Leeds Bird Rants as well on the show here. So what we'll do is we'll get stuck into that. We'll find out as well. And I've asked each of them to do their own predictions, starting with the team in 19th place. Of course, that's Leeds, and then moving themselves up to the team in 17th. Of course, the team at the moment in the safety spot, which is Everton. Two of these teams will be getting relegated from the Premier League on Sunday. Leave in the comments below who you think it will be. We'd really appreciate a subscription and also some likes of this video. And please do share it around if you're a fan of one of these clubs or another club as well involved in this, like ourselves, West Ham, and of course Spurs. Those three teams, although they can't be relegated, could have a big say in this whole picture. So let's get this started and let's go to the team in 17th spot first, which is Everton. Of course, under the management of Sean Dyche now. We did have our special guest on recently, Damon Minchella from Ocean Colour Scene, to discuss this game. So do check out that video as well after this one. But let's welcome on our first guest, Connor from the Toffee Blues. Welcome back, Connor. How you doing, mate?
Good, really good. Nice to be back. A little bit nervous for the weekend, but other than that, yeah.
Of course, of course. And Everton, as if anybody doesn't know, do have ourselves. So I tell you what, I've been asking everybody where it went wrong so far this season. Firstly, but let's go back to those two games. The last two games before the World Cup for Everton and Bournemouth, and Frank Lampard was in charge. And let's be honest, I said to Damon Minchella the other day from Ocean Colour Scene, I said Everton are the worst side that I've seen down here so far this season. But things have improved, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's not gone. I don't think it's gone as well as some people would like. It depends which Everton fans you ask. It's a glass half empty, glass half full. Some, I think, expected us to be better and are
Yeah.
disappointed, but statistically, we are miles better. If he took over sooner, we'd be okay. That week, those two games, for me, I remember speaking to you around the same time, and I'm pretty sure I said afterwards that he'd had to go, and this was before the World Cup
Yeah.
break. It was one. No disrespect to Bournemouth, but the performance was enough. Never mind the score. The performance was enough to sort of see the writing was on the wall. Like, I'm not just saying it because we lost 7 goals in a week to Bournemouth. It's more the performance wasn't there. I think tactically it was very clear he's way out of his depth at this football club.
And, going back to that earlier question, that of course, a lot has gone wrong at Everton. Frank Lampard is one part of it, but a lot more has gone wrong as well. You able to talk us through it, Connor?
Yeah, it's been a mess from it's been a mess. Honestly, if you were going to say how long for, some fans would argue way before Fad-Mashiri's takeover. The
Hmm.
Blue Union, Everton fans, there were protests towards Bill Kenwright long before Mashiri came over, saying that he had to go. He obviously sold the majority shares to Fad-Mashiri. Um, I think fans thought that would be the end of him. He'd probably sit in his director's box, enjoy watching his team, but that would be it in his involvement. Instead, he's been kept on and been making big decisions at the football club as well. He's part of the board. As much as he might play it down, he must be making big decisions at the board level. And since Fad Mashiri, it's been Oh, I don't know if there's ever been such a high to such a low. 500 million
Yeah.
in his tenure. We were signing players left, right, and centre, which is something before he took over. Everton weren't used to under David Moyes. With Ken Wright in charge, we were a lot more strategic in the windows. We
Mhm.
looked at stats. We looked at players that were in leagues that nobody would really buy from. When you think the likes of Nikita Jelavic, nobody would have looked at him from like Croatia if you know people wouldn't look at it now, never mind back then. Um, but it's just what happens when you. It'd be like having a Ferrari and the engine's knackered, but you keep whacking new paint over it. Eventually, it's going to break down, whether you like it or not. The paint's not going to gloss over everything.
Mhm.
And that's Everton now. The rust's starting to show. The new lick of paint isn't doing as well. And the rot's starting to set in.
It seems like Mashiri has backed Everton as a football club, but it's just how that money has been spent is just it's been spent on a lot of rubbish, really. Let's be honest.
Yeah, financially, I'd be a hypocrite to sit here now and say that financially he's not supporting the club. He is. There's
Hmm.
fans out there of football clubs that have the polar opposite, where they need stuff and no money's coming. It's his lack. I think where he struggles is his lack of leaving somebody else to deal with it. Like he's spoken about
Yeah.
Genk coaching, for example. He watched him Besiktas versus Monaco in the Champions League, liked Genk Tosun, was like, oh, he'll do well for Everton, and just went and got him. No
Mm.
discussion, really. Obviously, some discussion with the manager, but ultimately, he was like, I really want him. I think he's brilliant. There's rumours of players going out and agents going out to yachts in the middle of the ocean, discussing it. It's almost like he wants to be involved fully, wants his hands in and amongst it. And unfortunately, he's not qualified to do that. He's an accountant or was an accountant before he owned Everton Football Club. He's not a football in mind. He's a fan. It'd be like me owning the football club. As much as it might seem like a great idea, ultimately you need people who know football, and you need people singing off the same hymn sheets as well. Unfortunately, at Everton, there's too many people singing off different hymn sheets.
I remember back in the early noughties, of course, Everton got into the Champions League, and it was a qualifier, wasn't it, against Villarreal that was very, very unlucky not to get through. I believe it was it that Duncan Ferguson scored one to tie it up, or was that right at the end?
Yeah, and there's a dubious refereeing decision that ultimately.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was it Kalina that refereed that game as
yeah,
well? Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. There's a blast from the past. But back then, Everton were a club that was well run with not bags of money. You know, a lot of older players, a lot of older heads, and legends. Duncan Ferguson, massive legend at the club. Thomas Gravison as well, another legend. It was a club that had loads of people around under the stewardship of David Moyes. And all of that just seems to have fallen off a cliff for a load of players that, are maybe youngsters, but see Everton either as a stepping stone or, that they're just not as good as they're cracked up to be. And that the scouting's not there that used to be there in the past.
yeah. I think it's a mixture of both, isn't it? It's a prime example of kid in a sweet shop for one.
Hmm.
Sort of, we got all that money and straight away we're spending it like an 11-year-old who's just been given £50.
Yeah,
Um, and also, obviously, David Moyes was there for 11 years, a decade of building up, a club, an ethos, of hard working, regardless of what was going on above him or the lack of money. Him and his team were left, from what I can gather. I've watched a couple of interviews with him, where he was basically, it was him and his team. There was no he'd speak to the chairman, but ultimately David
yeah,
Moyes made the decisions because it's his team. And he was left to create that. And he got a lot of time to create that as well. And then ultimately, modern football has hit a lot of money. The more you spend, the more pressure you get. We got Roberto Martinez. That first season of him, it looked like we were going to be something. Lukaku, Barkley, and then that
yeah.
fell away. And then ultimately, you know, like I said, modern football hit. You've got managers where David Moyes, who struggled in his first couple of years and then built on to stabilise us. You don't
Mhm.
get that anymore. You don't get, even Alex Ferguson, when he first went to United, wasn't a success straight away. You don't get that stability anymore in modern football. So Roberto Martinez got a couple of seasons, then he got the boot. Ronald Koeman got the same, a couple of seasons, and then the boot. And then the decisions on who to manage us then went from okay to ambitious to worse, almost ambitious for the sake of you have to play a certain way, aka Frank Lampard, because I know people will be sitting there going, well, why didn't you give Frank Lampard 3 or 4 years? That was ambitious to the levels of almost silly. He wasn't, I don't think he was qualified enough for a Premier League job. I still don't think he is. He's done really well to get that Chelsea job because he's nowhere near qualified for that,
Yeah.
regardless of manager number 4 in each showing. But yeah, I think it's just unfortunately modern football's changed and we've not changed with it. And David Moyes, when left in full control, showed why managers. You think Ferguson had a lot of control at United. I think it comes to too many chefs spoil the broth.
One thing that I always thought as well, when Everton appointed Sean Dyche, we were linked to him, of course, when Scott Parker was sacked after that thrashing across the park that we received early on in the season. But yeah, yeah, can't stand Liverpool just because of that now. So yeah, we're much on Everton's side here. But there was mentions of us appointing Sean Dyche ourselves, but I was of the thought that he's a long ball merchant, get balls into the box, and we don't play like that. We've only got one big player up front, Kiefer Moore, and when he turned up at Everton, I thought exactly the same. Um, is that unfair to say that?
I'd say slightly. I'd say we looked more long ball under Frank Lampard at times.
Hmm.
Obviously, missing Calvert-Lewin doesn't help, but we'd had Neil Moipai up front, and you'd think, oh, maybe he'll play this passing football. Everyone thinks he's capable, that he is synonymous with him. No, it was
Hmm.
still lumped up to Neil Moipai. Since Deitch has come in, it's not. I think direct. He does like it to be direct. Obviously, he knows we're not a team that can pass it around 50 passes before we score.
Yeah.
So he wants the passes to ideally be forward instead of backwards and across the side. But he's not. I don't think it's lumping it up for the sake of lumping it. It's more aggressive, win the ball. Because another thing, people think it was just lay back, let the other team have loads of
Hmm.
possession. We press very well. We have been pressing this season. I think his main thing is keep compact, win the ball, and then sprint as quickly as you can. When you look at our running distances, players are achieving high running. It's hook or crook, whether it is a long or direct pass, or it's sprinting up the pitch. It's getting the ball from our end to their end as quickly as possible, hoping to sting them on the counter. So it is counter, but I don't think it's knocking balls down channels aimlessly. I think the prime example of that was the Brighton game that we won.
Yeah.
We held off. That time we didn't press because Brighton's whole thing is letting teams press and then
Hmm.
exposing the gaps that the teams leave. So we were like, we'll just leave them, but we'll hit them quickly on the break, get it down to the channels, have the wingers run at them, and then try and get the balls into the area as quickly as you can. Not always long ball. A lot of them were sprints. A lot of distance was covered from the likes of Onana, Decore, one of the prime examples. He was unreal in that game. So I think long ball merchant. I mean, he is susceptible to him, but I wouldn't define him as that. I think honestly, watching a couple of his interviews before he got the job, watching him now, I think he's hard to completely pin Sean Dyche because obviously Burnley, he is his
Yeah.
only real job before us. Obviously, I think that there was that Watford stint, but I don't think anybody's really paying as much attention to that as the Burnley one.
Hmm.
And it's almost like, what can he do if the tools are better? Which is what I think he looks at Everton and is with a bit of ambition. If we keep him and if we stay up, we're getting a takeover potentially. It's money now that he's never had before. It's a higher degree of players that he's never had before. I think he sees this as a good opportunity to make a different stamp on the world of football.
Playing devil's advocate here, if things are going against Everton on the final day of the season. Of course, Goodison, the Everton fans will be kicking every ball, but it could be quite a hostile place, especially for the owners and Bill Kenwright, if things are going wrong on the pitch. If things are going wrong, how does Dyche change it? What is he going to revert to? Say for example, there's 20 minutes left.
Um, it's tough at the minute because Goodison is going to be brilliant in terms of the first. It's going to be brilliant up until the first goal. Then, depending where that goes, it will be fantastic, or it's going to be really tense because every fan's going to start panicking, and
Hmm.
you could hear a coin drop there. It'll be that tense. It's tough because we've played with a bit of injuries. Like you said, it's not going our way right now. It looks like we potentially have no out and out fullbacks and no
Yeah.
striker in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I think in the Wolves game, we saw him not panic, but he was making choices that fans originally were like, okay, sticking Michael Keane up on the hope that he'd win some headers. Um, so I think we'll see him try and change. But ultimately, he's weirdly, and he gets a bit of stick for this. He's one of those that if he truly believes in something, he'll ride it out. So unless do or die, if we're drawing, for example, and something's because modern day football, somebody's going to tell him if one of the other two teams have jumped us, and someone says we need a win, I can see him chucking on the kitchen sink then because that is do or die. But ultimately, I can see him just steadying. If we're playing okay,
Hmm.
steadying the ship and going, if we're playing right, it will come type of mentality towards it. But obviously, if somebody then goes, "Oh, Leeds have just scored, they're winning, they're about to leapfrog us," and it's like the 80th minute, I can see him start throwing on the defenders because we don't have any attackers. He'll start throwing Michael Keane off front and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Before we go into the predictions, sorry, Connor, we're gonna have to do it. Do tell us a little bit more about your channel and where to find it.
Yeah, it's the Toffee Blues or at Everton Newsfeed on Twitter, which is where you can find us mainly. And on YouTube, it's at the Toffee Blues. We've got match reactions, ratings, previews, opposition scout reports like on players and opposition views like this.
Hmm. Excellent stuff. And all the details will be in the comment section below as well. Right, let's do this, Connor. We got to predict if Everton are going to stay up. So, how I've been doing this with everybody so far, and you're the first one to do this, according to this video. I have done them already. I know the results at this time, but let's start with Leeds, who, of course, start the day in 19th place. They've got Spurs at home. Are Leeds going to get anything from that? Are they going to win, draw?
See, everybody I've spoke to, even Leeds fans, have said no, but I think they're going to get. I think they're going to get something. I can see them getting a draw at least. I'm a little bit worried that they're going to get a win. I think Tottenham Hotspur are in a really tough spot that they don't know who's coming to take over in the summer, and the players. I know they've still got Europe, the conference to play for. I think they're a point off it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Um, but when you look at their performances, you wouldn't think European football's still up for grabs. They look like a team who are now already planning to go on holiday in the summer where they're going.
Do you think, if I had to press you for an answer, what do you reckon, draw or a win for Leeds?
I think a draw just because Harry Kane is in form still. It's their bad performances is overshadowing that he's in form at the minute.
Okay, fair enough. So Leeds, that would actually relegate Leeds. So they're gone. Um, let's go to the next one. To be honest, this might make it completely irrelevant now. Leicester versus West Ham. How do you think that's going to go?
This is tough because I watched West Ham are obviously they've just got that final to think about now. They're safe.
Yeah.
It's all about the final. But I thought they were gonna have that attitude against Leeds, and they never. Um, I and Leicester have just come from a really well earned but very very tough point against Newcastle. Um, it was unbelievable how Newcastle didn't win that game.
Hmm.
Um, I can see Leicester getting. It fully depends what squad David Moyes puts out, but I can see Leicester potentially getting a win just because if he rotates, I think they're open to it.
Fair enough. So, if Leicester win, that puts Everton in the bottom three. Connor, you know what we're going to ask next? Are you going to beat us? You have to beat us now. That's the
Yeah,
thing. You have to beat
yeah,
us. If Leicester are going to win, you have to beat us.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I don't want to say because it's I don't want to tempt fate and jinx it, but I hope so. I hope we can we can get a win. I think yeah. Now that I've said Leicester are going to win, we have to now. We have to.
Yeah.
But I can't quite physically bring myself to say anything other than a win now that I know that I've boxed myself in there. Um, so yeah, I'm going to go with a win, but ultimately I can see all three teams losing it and us staying up by default as well because it's just the most, anticlimactic way to end the Premier League relegation race like that.
Yeah. Oh crikey, it would be. It would be, and it's been a crazy season. To have that many teams in it. With 4 weeks left to go of the season, we were quite lucky that we pulled clear. But I wouldn't have no fingernails at this point in time if we were still in it. And I think it's going to be it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Personally, well, I'll give my prediction at the end of this show as well, who I think will stay up. But yeah, are we on the beach, or does Gary O'Neill want the final win of the season? We shall find out. But Connor, absolute pleasure to have you back on again. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll do this next year, and all the very, very best to Everton on Sunday as well. We shall see what happens, but yeah, Everton haven't been relegated since 1951. I actually did a little bit of research. The first game that Everton played was against Sheffield United. Um, it seems a horrible way to bow out the last game against ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be a real shame. We have, I mean, the one thing I will say is we have needing a win on the last day of the season to avoid relegation. While it might be new in my lifetime, isn't new to Everton Football Club. There's obviously the Coventry game, and I think the other one was Wimbledon. So it's not unbeknownst. My dad reminisces about Barry Horn all the time for
Yeah.
saving us. So I'm just hoping, almost like Real Madrid with the Champions League, and it's got that sort of relationship of I'm just hoping the Premier League just manages to pull some sort of magic, anything. That's where we're grasping onto now, faith and stuff. So yeah, hopefully.
Fingers crossed for you, mate. But all the very, very best for the final game of the season, and no doubt we'll catch up sometime soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, mate. There we go. That is what Connor has said from the Toffee Blues. So he has predicted Everton to stay up. Not really any surprises there. I think you'll probably see a trend. You'll see a trend. That's why I'm going to do my prediction at the end, and I'm really sorry if I upset people. Got nothing against any of these teams. I'm just going to say it as I see it and give reasoning behind that as well. So, of course, the team in 18th place starting Sunday will be Leicester City. Of course, a team not so long ago that won the Premier League, believe it or not, under Claudio Ranieri. Of course, they've had a couple of managers since then. Ended up with Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers didn't do very well this season. He did win the FA Cup a couple of years back, but are now under the management of Dean Smith after deciding to dispose of Brendan's services. And it's a pleasure to welcome back on to the show Chris from Leicester Till I Die TV. Hello, Chris. How you doing, mate?
Well, better than I was 2 days ago. I've never been as happy watching my team only have one shot on goal in 96 minutes. But what a goal that would have been had it gone in. But look, we're going into the last day with still a chance of staying up. And if you'd offered me that, 2 or 3 months ago, I'd have beaten your hand off.
Fair enough. I know what you're going to say here, but recap. Where's it gone wrong for Leicester?
Oh, put your feet up, everybody. Get a cup of cocoa. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I will begin.
Go on.
You know, we as a club liked to try and stay within FFP rules.
Yeah.
We've been done once before when we were in the championship, and we paid the fine and what have you. But to us, yes, we're rich, and if you look at, it's all relative. Rochdale will look at the likes of Bournemouth and Leicester and go, "You're rich," just like we look at Newcastle and Man City and go, "They're rich."
Yeah.
So we can't afford. We haven't got lawyers that can get us out of things like Man City can or Chelsea can, and we're not one of the big six, so we don't get away with things like that. So we finished last season eighth in the top tier and a semi-final of a European Cup competition.
Hmm.
The season, though, was not that good. It
No.
looked better than it actually was. A lot of huge open wounds were sort of held together by plasters that were coming apart. It looked to be a better season than it actually was. We were coming out of COVID with a company that owns us that their whole business is not, based in oil. They're not a huge American conglomerate that owns a basketball team, a netball team, a baseball
Hmm.
team, or what have you. Their money is based on tourism,
Yeah.
which under normal circumstances is one of the biggest things we spend money on after homes and cars. But obviously, it was also the biggest thing that got hit during COVID because nobody could travel. So when your parent company sort of owns like duty free shops and hotels, obviously they're gonna be hit.
Hmm.
That said, we were a well run club, but we'd been warned by UEFA that we had to be careful with our spending.
Yeah.
And had we qualified for Europe at the end of last season, we would have possibly got FFP fines.
Hmm.
And UEFA's FFP fines, in fairness, are a lot bigger than the Premier League. So we then, obviously, at the start of this season, still had hopes of qualifying for Europe. How wrong were we? So we had to try and balance the books. We'd got a
Hmm.
lot of average players that were on good wages because we'd been doing so well. We hadn't sold Tielemans when we should have done, and we base our whole structure of running the club is based on selling one big player a season.
Yeah.
We don't have to, but that is, it does help. We get somebody like Mahrez in for 425,000, selling for 50 million, 60
Hmm.
million. It does help fund the club. We didn't do that, and we kind of did like a Leeds did under sort of O'Leary and Risdale. We were trying to keep up with that top four, top five, and it wasn't to be. We haven't got the backing, no disrespect to Newcastle, of them. We had a couple of good seasons, but then we had to haul it back. Top, the owner, should have come out and said something at the start of the season. He didn't. He waited until deadline transfer day and the programme notes to say, this is why we haven't spent. We've got 25 players. We can't get rid of the players we've got, and we can't afford to bring in new players that aren't going to be playing or pay current players that aren't going to be playing. We've already got the likes of Vestergaard and Bertrand that fell into that category. But of course, you can only have 25 players. That's all you can register. So by that time, most Leicester fans were pissed off,
Yeah.
blaming Rodgers. It had kind of hung Rodgers out to dry. So no players came in until we sold Fofana. That cocked up the start of the season. He went on strike and spat his dummy out the pram. Couldn't bring anybody in until that point, and it was Wout Faes. We then had an awful start. And we had injuries, and I don't want to blame injuries because we'd had injuries the year before, but it was just an awful start. Rodgers should have gone then. We then had a bit of a resurgence, if you like. We beat a couple of teams that, no disrespect, we should have been beating. You know, the likes of Everton, the likes of Forest. On paper, you look at it, you think they are teams that Leeds that we should have been beating. So it was no big stick that we were. But throw into that, you guys were beating us, and I don't mean anything disrespectful to Bournemouth at all. But again, on paper, having just sacked your manager, having a guy that's running the club that's had no managerial experience, we would have expected to beat you. But of course, we didn't. It was the other way around, and you deservedly beat us. We lost to Southampton. Rodgers was coming out with every excuse. It was too hot, and the players weren't experienced enough. Yet we got beaten by the youngest team ever to have played in the Premier League in Southampton. The grass was too long. Somebody had his shorts on the wrong way around. Bus drivers in Leicester could not get insurance because we were running over that many City players that Brendan had thrown under the bus that nobody would insure them. It was ridiculous. Then the World Cup came along, and he should have gone then, but he didn't. Top felt some sort of loyalty to him because he wasn't able to back him. And he came back. We had a couple of wins. We got some new players in the January transfer window. Look, Brendan Rodgers didn't want to be there. That was obvious. He should have gone. We left it too late to sack him. Managers, like anything else, have a use by date. Rodgers had gone past his use by date and was beginning to stink the place out. I don't call him Brenda Bellend for no reason. He should have gone. He didn't. He's taken us down. He would not play Soyuncu because Soyuncu's head was turned, but he was being linked with Atletico Madrid. Well, he has now come out and said that he wouldn't have signed a contract if he was offered one anyway, although he wasn't offered one, because why would he sign for a club that didn't want to play him? And yet, Rodgers would play Yuri Tielemans, who has refused to sign a contract for 2 years. He actually refused to sign a contract. He had his favourites, and as somebody once said, he didn't have a small squad. He just had a small number of players that he trusted, or he would choose from. So 80% of it has to sit at Brendan's head, 10% with Top, and then 10% with the chief executive and the director of football, who sort of let Top down.
Of course, all three.
You're asking me now, don't you?
All three teams in this battle are all finishing the season with different managers to the ones that they started with. Of course, Dean Smith is Leicester's manager.
Yeah.
Are you happy with what he's done so far?
As happy as I could be. It's a very interesting thing because I think Everton changed the manager at the right time because you immediately have that little bit of a bounce. The new manager bounce, and then it wears off, but he's had time to come back and get another couple of good results. Leeds, I think, have left it too late, even by our standards, because I think we left it too late. The problem was when we decided to finally sack Top, we had nobody in mind to come in. There was no plan B in place. And when things are going that wrong, as a club, like I say, that Susan Whelan, the chief executive, John Rudkin, director of football, should be looking at this and going, God, we need to have a plan B here.
Yeah.
And there was no plan B, and that's why I say they let Top down. Dean Smith come in. Now look, he's been welcomed back, or he was welcomed, not back, but he was welcomed with relief, and that we'd finally got somebody new. We'd had 2 weeks of a standing manager who was no different to Brendan. He decided that the best thing that he could do was to play the same way that Brendan had been playing, even though that got us into where we were. But Dean Smith came with Craig Shakespeare.
Yeah.
who had been with us under Pearson, had been with under the great, escape of 14-15, had been part of Ranieri's title-winning team, had been a manager for a while and saved us from relegation. And so he was bringing him back. So it was a case of, welcome in. And of course, John Terry, apart from allegedly the players' wives, everybody else was pleased to see him because, he's got that experience. There's probably not a better Premier League defender out, or ex-Premier League defender
Yeah.
out there. And when you read the fact that Jesse Marsh had turned us down, you're thinking like, phew, yeah, well done. Let's get Dean in,
Yeah.
we hadn't quite got to the Gerrards or the Lampards or the Scott Parkers yet, and Dean Smith came in. And if you look at what they've achieved at Brentford, what Thomas Frank's done there, that was built on what Dean Smith had put in place. A bit like
Yeah.
Ranieri winning the Premier League was built on what Pearson had put in place.
Mm-hmm.
He got Villa promoted. He turned Grealish into a £1 billion player.
Yeah.
He kept them up one season, nearly getting them into Europe. He didn't work out at Norwich, but then, like this season, I don't think anybody could have saved Norwich. And when you look and say, well, he was sacked by Norwich were in 5th place.
Yeah.
It was like a bit of a Watford situation. So he was best of what was available with the team that he was bringing.
Mm-hmm. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Do you think that Leicester can survive on the last day? And if so, or if not, why not? Or why?
Depends if you do us a favour or not.
Against Everton.
Yes. I don't know unless you're playing anybody else, but yes, preferably.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sat in 15th at the moment. You've not won in 3, but
Yeah.
you're safe. And congratulations to Bournemouth on staying up.
Thank you, mate.
I think Matthew from your channel sent me a compilation of everybody saying that Bournemouth would go down. But I think I said Bournemouth would go down, but you've got to take that into context that when we were all saying that, you had Scott Parker as your manager.
Yes. No, very true. Very true.
So look, as you know, and I'd live just outside Bournemouth, so I'd love the both of us to stay up. But no, well done the Cherries on staying up. Well deserved. We've made it difficult for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have probably given you a different answer before last night. Last night, I believe that the St James's Park ground staff are still picking up bits of Leicester City players off the pitch because they left everything out there. They literally did. Where that pride, passion, and spirit came from, God only knows. Because they didn't show it against Fulham. They weren't showing it against Arsenal earlier in the season. Finally, they grew a pair and managed to put in. I mean, don't get me wrong. To me, the woodwork was the man of the match. But I think Newcastle, it was just one of those games where if they'd still been playing now, they wouldn't have scored.
Yeah.
And we could have snatched it at the end, and wouldn't that have been the biggest smash and grab in Premier League history? But I love the fact that on 85 minutes, I think the commentator turned out, or the commentator said, like, I think because we'd come into our own, we were actually fighting then. Dean Smith had actually, although I complained about the squad that the team that he put out, he'd got it right in the end, and he'd got the substitutions right. And the commentator said, I think Eddie Howe's going to actually take the point now because that will still guarantee him Champions League football. So if that Leicester turn up against West Ham, and West Ham, obviously, they're safe, so they could be on the beach there. In the back of their mind, there is a European Cup final coming up. We could, because up until last night, we hadn't seen a performance from Leicester like Everton against Brighton.
Yeah.
Or Leeds against Liverpool. We that wasn't within Leicester's. We couldn't do that. Suddenly, all right, like I say, it was all one-way traffic, but we did what we had to do. If we'd lost last night, we would have been down anyway. Well, not guaranteed because obviously we still, if you beat Everton and we beat them, we could have still West Ham could have still stayed up, but we're as good as down. So it's given us a fighting chance. And I love about it is the fact that we've got to win. A draw's no good. So we can't go out and think, oh God, let's be a bit careful here. Let's not concede, but we do know a draw would keep us up. No. We've got to go for it.
Yeah.
And we're playing a team that we beat 2-0 earlier in the season. There's not many teams we've beaten this season. And like I say, West Ham have got that European Cup final at the end of the, and you know, at back of the mind. But I will be keeping one eye on the Bournemouth Everton game. Unfortunately, and again, I don't mean this with any disrespect to Bournemouth at all, because like I say, congratulations on staying up. And you know, I've lived down here and I've been through your recent history with you.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can see Everton getting something. They're at home, and like I say, if they can fight the way they have been doing, they might just get that point that they need, and then it doesn't matter what we do.
Well, I tell you what, let's go in reverse order then. So the team the team in 19th at the moment, Leeds United, they're at home to Spurs. How do you think that's going to go?
Again, Spurs, you know, which Spurs is going to turn up. You know? I mean, Spurs is the club that just keeps giving and giving, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's at home, but Leeds haven't won in 5. It doesn't matter, to be honest with you, because if we win, it doesn't matter what Leeds do. Because, you know, we're on -18, they're on 27. So unless they beat Spurs 9-0, and no matter what Spurs turn up, they ain't going to lose 9-0. It doesn't really matter. But I could see Leeds getting a point out of that one.
So that would relegate Leeds regardless.
Yeah.
Right, let's go on to the most important one for you. Leicester and West Ham. Are you going to beat West Ham again?
Heart and head have got two different answers here.
Go on.
I'm going to go yes. I know, like, you could say, oh, you got blue tinted spectacles on and all that. But, I mean, it's the biggest game of the season. I mean, I've just done an interview with Capital Radio East Midlands, and they said, how big a game is this? And to me, this is the biggest game since the FA Cup. Bigger, probably, because of the money that it will cost us. So it's a huge, huge game. Thank God we're at home. The crowd will be absolutely up for it. And if the Leicester go out that turned up yesterday, not in the defensive mode, but in the spirit, in the fight, in the determination, yes. Let's hope West Ham players don't want to get an injury ahead of the game. I know it's 10 days afterwards, but if you pull a muscle or something, you're out of the European Cup final. Or will David Moyes, who is rumoured are that he might be leaving at the end of the season? I mean, that's a way to go out with the European Cup, isn't it? And will he put out a weakened team? You know, but I've got to go with my heart on this one and go, yes, I think we will beat West Ham.
There we are. What score?
Oh, now you get to it. I haven't done my score prediction yet. I think
that's all.
to be honest with you, I'm going to go 2-1 to Leicester. I think they'll keep us on the commode for 90 odd minutes. But it might go in off Jamie Vardy's arse on the 95th minute or something. I'd take it.
Right, and then of course Everton against Bournemouth.
Okay, please do not take this the wrong way, but I don't know whether Everton will win, because I think you guys. I don't think you guys are going to be on the pitch. Yes, you've got nothing to play for, but the pride counts as a lot. And of the season, I mean, you know, you've still got. This was the season that you conceded 9 against Liverpool. So you want to go out with a bit of a bang. You know, if we do you a favour, and in a way we could do by beating West Ham for you, you could. Well, you'll finish above West Ham. I don't think you won't finish above Wolves because they've got an 11 goal difference on you. But you'd finish 14th.
We could finish above Wolves.
Sorry?
We could finish above Wolves.
Well, no, because you'll have...
We'll be on 42 if they get beat.
Oh, 42, sorry. Maths was
Yeah.
never my strong point. Yes, so we could do you an even bigger favour. And wouldn't it be
Yeah.
good if you finished one place behind Chelsea?
Well,
So,
it'd be remarkable, really.
but I do think Everton will get a draw. I'm afraid on this one. I hate to say it, and I
Draw.
really do hope Bournemouth, because otherwise I'll nip down to the Vitality and put a sledgehammer through your windows. But I do hope
So,
we do beat them. But I think it will be a draw.
so you think Leicester will get a draw?
No, Leicester will get a win.
Oh, sorry. Leeds will get a draw.
Yeah,
Leicester will get a win.
yeah,
Everton will get a draw.
yes.
That will keep Leicester up.
No, it won't.
It will. Everton will be on
No, 'cause that will
34
give
points.
Everton 34. Yes, it will.
It will.
That would give Everton 34, and then we would get 34, but we've got the better goal difference. That is, to be honest with
Yes.
you, I have got a spreadsheet of the different options of what happens if sort of thing. So I am, and I'm old. Come on, I'm retired. I'm old. You know what that's like. Uh, those days when you're out there, out in the field with your hand up a cow's bottom. You know what those moments are like, don't you?
Oh
Um,
dear, dear, oh
that will
dear.
keep us up, and I don't give a damn whether we stay up on goal difference by a point. If we stay up, we stay up, and whatever happens, we're going to have a rebuild. But of course, staying up financially makes all the difference.
Exactly. Well, all the very best to Leicester in
Thank you.
this battle. Of course, I'm going to say that to the
You
Leeds
can
and the
see,
Everton
well,
fans
I
as
don't know
well.
why
So
I was
yeah.
feeling happy then. I've
Oh,
done a thing on my Twitter, and you can cut this out if you want to. But I said all my non LCFC followers, who do you want to see go down? And at the moment, with 72%, it's Everton. Leeds are second, and we're third on just 7%. So I think we have the nation's love out
yeah,
there.
fair enough. Fair enough. Although saying that, you've put a poll. That's your poll, isn't it?
No, but
So
it does say to all non LCFC
uh,
followers.
fair enough. No problem.
I didn't vote on
And
it at all.
liar. But before you go as well, and we welcome on our Leeds fan. What would you like to say to the fans of Everton and Leeds?
Look, I've got nothing against fans of either team.
Hmm.
I've got fan, this when we say these things, it is never it's never about the fans. It's about
Hmm.
the club.
Yeah.
A lot of people my age don't like Leeds because they remember so-called dirty Leeds.
Hmm.
I have found Leeds. What I've liked about Leeds fans when they've come up is the fact that they've not been like the Nottingham Forest fans. I'm not saying that just because it's Nottingham Forest, but they haven't been the "we're back where we belong" sort of attitude.
Yeah.
They've had the attitude of "thank God we're back,"
Yeah.
and that's the right attitude to have. And I think Forest, they're staying up. God, that hurts. But yeah, Leeds, please don't win. Everton, look, I don't really, I'm not bothered about Everton as a club, but I don't like clubs that just manage to stay up. Wigan used to do it an awful lot. Every season they just stay up, they just stay up, and you're thinking, oh, go down and give somebody else a chance. And Everton will be the biggest scalp if they go down.
Hmm.
Out the three of us, all right, they've never won the Premier League, we have, blah, blah, blah. But they will still be the biggest of the three of us to go down as a club. And I think a lot of fans, me included, like to see the bigger clubs go down. I mean, if you're saying, would I want to see Chelsea go down or Bournemouth go down? It's Chelsea 1,001%
Hmm.
because they're the bigger club, and it's nice to see the big clubs fall sometimes. But to both the fans of both, I really don't hope either of you win. But I wish you all the best, and hopefully see you soon.
Yep. Well, obviously they'll be in the championship if you survive.
Exactly. That's why I said see you soon, and I
Yeah.
think a couple of seasons.
Well, Chris, been a pleasure, and we shall find out what the Leeds fans have got to say.
Thank you very much for having me on, and well done at staying up, and enjoy next season.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. And there we are. Chris has predicted Leicester to stay up. Told you, told you. You know, it is predictable. This nobody's going to bet against their own team. So, of course, the team in the toughest position, let's be fair, going into this game is, of course, Leeds United. A team that we've spoken to a lot of their fans about across this whole season. Of course, we spoke to Dan as well, from the Square Ball, fantastic channel there. And we have another Leeds fan on today. So we've got Cate from Leeds Bird Rants to tell us what she thinks of Leeds United. Of course, started the season under Jesse Marsh, now under stewardship of a certain Sam Allardyce, but they have had three managers during the space of this season. Of course, Jesse Marsh was in charge when we lost 4-3 up at Leeds. When we won 4-1 recently, Javi Gracia was in charge of Leeds. To be fair, that game probably got him the sack. Also got rid of Victor Orta as well. So let's find out what Cate says about their chances of escaping the bottom three. Afternoon, Cate. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yep, all good. Thank you. All good. Um, let's start off from the very beginning. What's gone wrong this season?
I think, to be honest with you, it goes back beyond this season. I think this whole thing sort of started to fall apart visibly after our first, season in the Prem.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for me, it starts at the top. In my mind, as simplified as this seems, Victor Orta was handed a blank checkbook and basically the reins at Ellen Road by Radrazani, and he basically ran the show, and he wasn't good enough. He's made some good signings. We can't get away from that. Rafinha, um, who else have we got? Click, Mateus Click, most recently, Willy Nonto, obviously. But I think it all started to unravel when Jesse Marsh was appointed, because he was the wrong man for the job. So, and then of course you've got all the signings that followed that. The January signings. It's just been one catalogue. It's been a catalogue of bad decisions from start to finish, to be honest with you.
Our two games this season have been quite big for ourselves, but also Leeds as well, because I understand back in October when we played you, or it was November, wasn't it? It was fireworks
Yeah.
night, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We were 3-1 up. We got beat 4-3 by Leeds, but there was talk of Jesse Marsh leaving the club then, wasn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, of course, our most recent game, under Javi Gracia, we won 4-1, and then there was a whole host of changes. Let's go back to that 4-3. And if we had held on to that lead, I know it sounds stupid, but do you think Leeds might have been in a better position because Jesse Marsh would have gone then?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem was that that was a sort of pattern with Leeds, scoring, snatching victories from the eyes of defeat, so to speak, which kept essentially Jesse Marsh in a job. But he should not have, in my opinion, been around after the World Cup. You know, his style of football was frantic, chaotic. Yes, they fought. They had fight, but it wasn't consistent enough, you know. And the defense was shocking. Even then, there was no real attention paid to the defense. So yeah, I mean, I really do think that could have been, you know, if you had won that game, it might have sort of, you know, the trigger might have been pulled metaphorically a lot sooner. But as it was, it wasn't. You know, he was left in charge, and it took a defeat at Forest, you know, for him to finally be shown the door without anybody lined up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you couldn't make it up. And we get in a guy, Javi, who really, you know, lovely guy,
Hmm.
humble man, had success with Watford, but he was literally the only guy that we could get to do that. Interestingly, though, we didn't approach Sam at that point, and there's been a lot of speculation around the fact that if Sam Allardyce had the 11 games in charge that Javi Gracia had, he might have, you know, things might be different now. But for some reason, again, Victor Orta didn't want the phone didn't ring, apparently, and you know, rumor has it that it was only when Orta left, and Angus Kinnear,
Yeah.
who knew Sam from his Hammers days, I believe, gave him a call. And that's when Sam was brought in with 4 games. I mean, who can, you know, he's not a miracle worker. And even he's been saying, you know, I've told the guys what they need to do, but they're not executing it on the pitch. So, you know, I think the lack of managers, or sorry, what I should say, I think that the managerial changes, you know, there's been no one style that the players can get behind. You know, it's been chopping
Yeah.
and changing, different styles of play, different formations. Players are expected to play in different positions, ones they're not used to. Take Tyler Adams, for example, you know, injured during training before the World Cup. And it was a World Cup, wasn't it? Or was it the international break? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's been out, massive for us. And you know, it's just been one disaster after another, really.
I did watch the whole of your game against West Ham the other day, and first 20 minutes you started very, very well. Of course, Rodrigo
Mhm.
scored,
Yeah.
and then you just capitulated. Really, is the nice word to put it. Just fell apart. Has that been the story of the season? Really?
Oh God. It has. And more recently, scoring first. Yeah,
Hmm.
especially with Sam. Scoring first, and then literally sitting back. I don't know what happens. I don't know. I mean, you could, you know, you could, you know, trace this back to, you know, to all the games, the Palace game, you know, the Newcastle game. It literally is. Come out the blocks,
Hmm.
and then it all go. I don't know what happens up here. I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm lost for words. I don't know what it is. Um, there's no sort of robustness. You know, they're not mentally strong. They don't know how to sort of score and then keep the pressure on. They score and then sit back and fall apart. I'm sure you'll agree, you know, when
Yeah.
watching the game on Sunday, they fell apart. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to watch, and then you sort of you question whether there's certain players in there who are invested in the club. You know, that's been a big bone of contention as well. You know, players that were brought in specifically for Jesse Marsh,
Yeah.
who, you know, are wandering around the pitch, really just sort of not really that bothered, or they give that impression. I was talking about Tyler Adams earlier, but without Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie is like a shadow of his former self. He hasn't got his sort of his compatriot there. And then he's had to step into that defensive midfield role, and that's not his natural position. If you watch him playing for the USMNT or Juventus, he's more of an attacking midfielder. He hasn't had a chance to shine in that position, and it's just really, it's so sad. It's so sad what's happened. It's like watching a slow death.
How does Sam approach this game against Spurs on Sunday? Because there is no other option now. You've got to win that game.
Well, yet again, it's really hard because, as I'm sure you saw, Bamford and Rodrigo are injured. I'm not sure whether
Yeah.
Bamford being injured is a major loss, to be honest with you. Although, to give him his due, there was some decent hold-up play in the first 20 minutes against West Ham, and there have elements of it. But also with Bamford, I mean, he scored 4 goals this season, 2 goals last season. He's a number 9, for God's sake. He should be, so that's a different story. But how does he approach it? Well, I think he has got to cobble a squad together, cobble a team together from a very sort of mismatched and unbalanced squad. And that again links back to the recruitment. £35 million for a striker, Ruta, in January, who started once for us and is now playing for the under-21s. I mean, he must be bad if he hasn't been brought on as a sub in the last 4 matches. That's all I can say. So, there's been talk of him changing it up. So perhaps even, using Nonto up front. He has played in that position before for Italy. He's an Italian international, as we know. He's really the most exciting player for me. But even in my video I did yesterday, I said that, even he has regressed being at Leeds. He hasn't been a launch pad in terms of, how brilliant he could have been to an amazing career. He has regressed because of the chaos at Leeds. So anyway, I think what he's got to do, he has got to somehow galvanize them mentally, and try and field maybe a different looking team. I think we've got to be a bit more creative, and we need somebody like Nonto. For me, I love him. I love watching him. He's been the highlight of my season, really. But it's been sad to watch what's happened to him. He was left out for the most part under Javi. So his confidence is probably shot, and it's awful. So I don't know, to be honest with you. Different formation maybe. But the defense is still as bad as ever, Don't know.
Of course, the last time Leeds were relegated from the Premier League, you had a difficult time getting back, dropped down to League One, and I don't want to remind you of that Histon game as well in the FA Cup, which was you'd never imagine, would you? Because Leeds are a massive club. I've got to be honest, massive club, and it was sad to see what happened. But surely this time, if the worst happens on Sunday, you should be in pole position to have an instant return.
That's really interesting point, to be honest with you, because you'd have thought so, wouldn't you? I think, look, there are some positives, and I think, if we've kind of accepted, or I've accepted, and I know a lot of people that I talk to have accepted we're going down. So what we need to do now is regroup and be positive about the future. Now we've got the 49ers taking over. They're a minority shareholder at the moment, and obviously, I think Radrizzani's off buying Sampdoria, so hopefully, some sort of deal will go through where they become majority shareholders. So hopefully, the ownership will be in place, very, very soon. Because without that, we've got no certainty about anything. And then I think for me, and I'm just sort of doing a video about this at the moment myself, is the director of football is so important, and I think people can underestimate the importance of getting that right, particularly when the names bandied around to me this morning for a possible director of football is the guy who's currently at Norwich. And then you look at what Norwich are doing, who he's brought in, and it's an absolute car crash. So, we do not need anybody like that. We need to be smart with our director of football appointment. And I think for me, the key is getting somebody in who has a proven success rate, who's proved himself at another club. Another guy that's sort of the name's been bandied around is Kieran Scott, who's currently at Borough. He came from Norwich to Borough and doing a really, really good job. Part of me thinks, why would he want to leave? Because him and Michael Carrick seem to be working pretty well together. But somebody who's got some success behind them. He's brought in some great players into Middlesbrough. And watching Middlesbrough play and then watching the way we play at the moment, there's no comparison. So I guess my point is, we should be in pole position, with decent ownership, who are prepared to invest, and the parachute payments, obviously, that we get. But whether we are depends very much on whether we get our appointments right. And that starts for me with the director of football, and then, of course, the head coach. So, and then buying astute players and getting rid of the ones that really shouldn't be in our team.
If you had managed to keep hold of that lead against West Ham, you would have been going into this in pole position. As it happens, you are in 19th place and do need favours from other teams. With regards to the defence, at Leeds, and during that game against West Ham, it just looked like West Ham read the right act. They knew how to actually score against Leeds. We showed it. We showed it a couple of weeks beforehand as well. Do you think that Sam is going to be working on that for this weekend? Because that really is the key, isn't it?
I think that, to put a coaching team into place like they did with Sam, with Robbie Keane and Carl Robinson, I think they did a pretty good job. Those guys are pretty good, I think, quite solid. But they need time. And 4 weeks, is not long enough.
No.
They can try things, but I think, to be honest with you, I don't think the quality's there. I do not think we've got the quality at left back. We've got Luke Ayling, who, let's face it, you cannot, you can't argue with his commitment to the club, with his effort on the pitch, but not good enough for a Premier League team. Then you've got Rasmus Christiansen. Yeah, he scored a couple of goals, but passing is appalling, And Leeds, as you would have seen at West Ham, they found themselves behind the ball so many times. Who else was there? There was Pascal Struijk. I mean, really. And then who we have it left on? I've forgotten who we had. I can't remember. Firpo was out. Was it Wober at left?
I think so. Yeah,
honest.
sure it was actually. Yeah.
But whoever. Yeah, I mean, look, we found ourselves behind the ball so often, and it was ridiculous. and there's a limit to what you can do. You know, when you haven't got quality players who their confidence is on the floor. So I'm sure he will be working with them. I'm sure he's been working with them all week, and will do. But whether it'll make any difference, I don't know. Because you're absolutely right. You know, you can see exactly what the problems are, and week in, week out, same old thing, isn't it? Same old problems. We can
Yeah.
get on the front foot and score, and then everything just goes to, you know, to pot, basically. And we all forget what we're supposed to be doing. We lose our heads, we lose our cool, we lose our composure, and you know, we're easy to beat. We're easy to beat. People know, people they watch Leeds. You know, they're not gonna Leeds defense isn't gonna change in a week. And Spurs will be, I mean, Spurs, their form is appalling at the moment.
Yeah.
But then we're 18th in the we're sorry, 19th in the league for a reason. Because, you know, teams that generally speaking haven't won in a while, they walk over us.
I think the way I see it is the Leeds have got the best manager out of the three clubs in this battle. But defensively, you know, I've seen a little bit more defensively from Everton. Leicester seem a little bit dodgy defensively, but hopefully, fingers crossed, Sam can sort that out for you. Before I let you go, Cate, and I will get you to give a shout out to your channel as well because it is fantastic. Let's predict these three games. So we'll have to start with yourselves because you are in 19th spot. Are you going to beat Spurs? You can go with head or heart here.
Oh my god. This is so difficult. This is so difficult. Um the thing is, if we do beat them, we need to beat them by a lot to have any sort of hope of staying up. I Oh my goodness. Heart 3-1.
Heart 3-1. Right, okay. You know where we're going with this
Head.
next, though, don't you? So let's go to Leicester versus West Ham. Are Leicester going to do anything?
Now, this is an interesting one because we were really surprised at, well, I was, and I know I've spoken to a few other people who were, that David Moyes fielded such a strong squad against Leeds on Sunday. So I'm wondering whether or not he'll do the same. If he does, bearing in mind, you know, they've still got a while till, you know, they play in Prague, so the
Yeah,
players will be decently rested. Hopefully he'll field a strong squad, and yeah, I think the Hammers will win that.
there we
So
are.
I'm going for, pardon?
There we are. So you're going above
Yeah,
Leicester. How many?
2-1.
What's going to be the score?
2-1.
2-1 to West Ham. Right. Okay. The big one. Us versus Everton. Are we going to get anything from Goodison?
Oh God. It depends how well Gary O'Neill knows Sam. Whether he, you know. I would like to think yes,
Mhm.
because I mean you have to think that they're without DCL, aren't they?
Yeah.
And also Patterson's out, isn't he, in defence? I
Yeah.
think is it Patterson who's out for Everton. I'm praying like nothing on earth that obviously heart says you can, head says probably not. Because am I right in thinking even if you Everton draw, you know, that they stay up?
They do, unless Leicester win. So if Leicester win, Leicester have got a better goal difference than Everton, so they'll go into 17th place. Everton will go down. However, if Everton draw, it's going to be very. It would take a big. I think it's a 9-goal swing, isn't it, to overcome them or something like that.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
Personally, if I can just say this, and I know it won't go down very well, I would prefer Everton to come down with us,
Mhm,
purely because of the FFP we were talking about.
mhm.
You know, I think
What
so.
would you say to Leicester and Everton fans, Cate?
Oof.
Putting you on the spot here.
You know, listen, I'm not one of these like. Well, do you know what? I have actually become more tribal in the last few weeks, but I like to think of myself as a fair kind of person.
Yeah.
Look, I don't. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think any of the bottom four deserve to stay up. I think they've all been appalling all season. I don't think there's really a cigarette paper between us. Um, we are absolutely appalling at the moment. And the difference, I think, between Everton and Leicester are they've shown fight, and I respect that. We've shown none, and that is the issue, and that is a big issue for Leeds United fans as well. So I would say to them, do you know what? The financial fair play thing to Everton does annoy me, and it annoys
Mhm.
a lot of other people. I don't think it's fair. That's why it's called fair play. And
Yeah.
they've broken that. So that is my only reason for wanting them to come down with us, because I don't think you should be allowed to get away with that.
Mhm.
But fight it out. Do what you need to do on the day, and may the best teams win. Say that through gritted teeth. I would never on anybody. Do you know what I mean? I just obviously, I've got my sort of ethics to consider, and for me, I just think they deserve to sort of suffer for that. That they've like broken the rules, so to speak. So yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Before you go, do tell us where everybody can find you on YouTube as well, Cate.
Yeah, I am Leeds Bird Rants, Leeds United fan channel. So if you just put that in, yeah, and I do a daily breakfast show, and I also do videos throughout the day. So well, not throughout the day. I'd probably do another video, match previews, and yeah, just general Leeds United banter. And, yeah, it's great. I love it. The people that I'm meeting through it are fantastic human beings, and it's all good fun. It's all good. We chat about football, which is what we like talking about, and yeah. So you can hop over and find me there. Give me a subscribe.
And all the details are down below in the comments. But Cate, all the very, very best for Sunday. You never know. Hopefully, we can do you a favour. Um, there is the small matter of moving up a couple of places for us. Of course, you're relying on West Ham to beat Leicester as well. So maybe we can't go above them, but maybe we can go above Wolves. So,
I
um,
actually genuinely believe you mean that. So thanks for that.
yeah. But
A
no,
lot of
all the
people
very, very
don't,
best.
So thanks for that.
No problem at all. And yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be doing this next season. You never know.
Well, we might when we meet each other in the FA Cup, eh?
You don't sound optimistic. You don't sound
Every
optimistic at this
cloud.
point.
Oh,
No,
God.
thank you so much for coming on, Cate.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, mate.
And
Thanks.
there we go. That is all the predictions. Please do check out all of those guys' channels below, and please do subscribe to all of them because they all do fantastic content. And honestly, fantastic. And thank you so much to them throughout the season as well because they've been really supportive of this channel. And likewise, we want to give a little bit back. I told you I've got to now predict what I think is going to happen. Now, I am going to be completely honest. Everybody else has predicted. I'm going to be completely honest. I have got nothing against any of these teams. So there is no bias here at all. I am saying it as I see this. I'm saying this as I see it, what I think is going to happen. I am going to start in the same order that I've asked my special guests to start in, and that is from the bottom upwards. Not Southampton, they're already gone. Bye, Saints. But let's start with Leeds United. Of course, Leeds United have the visit of Tottenham Hotspur on Sunday. On paper, if you look at the three teams' games, this looks like the hardest one of the three. However, we know that Spurs haven't been particularly very good recently. We beat them 3-2. They've been getting dodgy results for the past couple of weeks. Leeds against West Ham, I watched that game, like I said to Cate. I did watch that game. I thought Leeds were very good for the first 20 minutes and completely collapsed. Sam Allardyce would have seen that and would have been working on that meticulously all week to stop that happening again. So, based on that, and based on this, like I say, there is no bias in this whatsoever. Leeds United, the team in 19th place. I'm going to keep you holding, aren't I? I'm trying to do an Anton Deck here. You know, when they announced the what is it, Celebrities in the Jungle program. I'm trying to do that, but probably quite poorly. I'm not an Ant or a Deck. Bit younger than them, but wasn't in PJ and Duncan. Sorry. Let me carry on with it rather than talking shit. So Leeds United, 19th place under Sam Allardyce. I am awarding you. That was the wrong way. I am rewarding you a win. So there we are, Leeds. As it stands, and like I say, we're updating the table after each of these results. Of course, I'm going to leave you hanging right until the very end. Leeds United are out of the relegation zone on 34 points. But of course, there is two left to play. It's a bit like a shit version of Eurovision, this, isn't it? Right. Okay. Talking about Eurovision, let's go to Leicester. And of course, Chris from Leicester Till I Die. Right. Okay. Leicester, very, very good result against Newcastle United recently. A 0-0 draw. There was points in that game where they could have won the game. There was points in that game where they were holding on for dear life. Let's be honest, if they had been beaten in that game, there would have been no chance whatsoever. They have the visit of West Ham United. Of course, West Ham United were a side who recently beat us 4-0 at home. Leicester haven't been particularly very good, been weak at the back. Jamie Vardy looks like he's struggling scoring goals, but there is players there. There's a good squad there. James Maddison, fantastic player. Harvey Barnes, another very, very good player. Out of the three squads, I would say that Leicester have probably got the best. Have they got the best manager? Like I was saying to Cate, I don't think so. I think Leeds have got that. But they're coming up against West Ham. And there is something that is making me think about this. West Ham are managed by David Moyes. Now, if you was watching at the start of the show and not glazing over, David Moyes is a former manager of which club? Everton. He is a former manager of Everton. Will he do Everton a favour? Or Will he rest players for this European final? There's arguments for and against this. Rest the players, make sure they don't get any injuries, go into that game with Fiorentina with a fully rested team. But then again, is it always good to actually go into a huge game like that with a weakened squad? So, Leicester City, 18th place in the Premier League at the moment, managed by Dean Smith, former Premier League champions, side I've got massive respect for, in all fairness. Absolutely lovely fan in Chris from Leicester Till I Die. You speak to him quite a lot, actually. Local guy as well. Are you going to get out of this? Let's go to this commercial break.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
And there we are. That's what we are. We are now on the TalkSport Fan Network. So please do check us out on our podcast as well. Any podcast you want. Right, let's get back to it. I'm just doing that just to wind Chris up. But sorry, Leicester fans, you probably want to know. Right, Leicester City, Dean Smith, 18th place in the Premier League, former Premier League champions. I predict that you are going to get a draw. A draw. It won't be good enough. And I'll be gutted, actually, to see Leicester go down from the Premier League. Of course, that fairy tale story in our first season ever in the Premier League. It's such a shame, but I think the big game for Leicester, we would be having very, very different conversations, let's be fair, if you had won that game against Everton a couple of weeks back. And Chris mentioned it as well on this show earlier on. If you was listening to him, he did mention it. So I am sorry, Leicester fans. At this moment in time, well, you're going to finish there 19th spot because, of course, Leeds have won their game. And then there is one. So Leeds United are out of the relegation zone. Everton are just behind them. Leicester are relegated at this point, fortunately. Everton, I will stand by this, were the worst team to have visited Dean Court this season. Without a shadow of a doubt, they were absolutely terrible. They were atrocious. They were that poor. I just don't know what happened to them. They have got a decent squad of players. They haven't got much attacking threat up front. At the back, they look okay. Defensively, the players they've got look good. But then again, they get freak results like this game against Brighton, but then draw against Wolves. Of course, at this point, a draw would be enough for them. Sean Dyche, of course, was a manager that I turned around and said we shouldn't have here at Bournemouth. Am I right in that? Yeah, I think I am. Like Connor was saying, it's a bit unfair to call him a long ball merchant. Probably was that at Burnley and probably was. That's why they probably went down, because they were so fixed to that style of play. But Vincent Kompany has given them a big reset and they're on their way back up. With ourselves, we have been, you could argue, we've been on the beach the last away game against Crystal Palace. That was a very, very poor performance. Although you've got to give, this is the thing, you've got to give Crystal Palace some credit here. Elise, Eze, Joe Ward, they were fantastic that day. Against Manchester United, we saw a better performance, though. We didn't look on the beach that day. We looked like we wanted to win that game. We could easily have got a draw out of that, and probably that was the fairest result. But since the Leeds game, we've done enough, and we have kind of just lurched towards the end of the season. Right, are you ready for it? Everton fans have been here before, so I'm sure that you guys are used to it. But Everton in 17th spot, well, currently in our little table, 18th, because Leeds are in 17th spot. Sean Dyche, managed earlier on by Frank Lampard, 40,000 Evertonians in Goodison Park, not been relegated out of the Premier League since 1951. Are you going down? And my honest prediction is no, you're not. No, you're not. I think you will beat us 2-0. I honestly do. I think you'll beat us 2-0. Like when Benjamin Bloom spoke on this channel earlier on in the week, and do watch that interview now. You can watch that now, Everton fans, because I've said it's going to be safe. But of course, there's no rhyme or reason behind any of my predictions here. It is just my honest opinion. I've said that none of these sides are going to get beat on the final day of the season, which is crazy when, let's be honest, that's why they're in the situation they're in, is because they keep getting bloody beat. So, take it with a pinch of salt. Like I say, there is no bias against this at all, or any team. But I honestly think there's going to be 40,000 Evertonians in Goodison Park. I think it is going to be hostile. I think the fans will get on the players' back if they go 1-0 down against us. I can't see it happening because I think the players will know that, and I think they'll be like, right, okay, we've got to win this game at all costs. And that's why I am betting against my own team here. I've got to be honest, I am betting against my own team. But like I say, it's an opinion. It's an opinion of what I think is going to happen rather than, just giving bias and say, oh, yeah, we'll beat Everton, don't care what happens to the other teams. I am just saying it as I see it. And I think, a 2-0 win will be enough for Everton. I think there will be times during the day where all three teams, and I say this lightly, all three teams are safe at one point. I think it'll probably start with Leicester because I think they'll probably go a goal ahead against West Ham. I think Leeds will get the lead against Spurs. Of course, Everton, I say that, Everton being, winning 2-0, Leeds would have to thrash Spurs to actually get out of that at any point. So maybe not Leeds, but I think Everton and Leicester probably will dice around. Those two will swap places. But personally, I think just Everton will have the support, the backing, the whole drive behind them. I think they're going to get out of this. So my prediction is Everton will finish the season on 36 points, securing safety. Leeds United will finish the season on 34 points after a win against Spurs. They will be in 18th. And I'm sorry, Leicester fans, David Moyes will do his old club a favour and get a draw against West Ham. But like I say, this is just my predictions. And what I want to do is in that comment section below, can you all leave me, once you've watched this video, everybody please leave me your predictions for this game. So put on there the results for Leeds, Leicester and Everton, and then work out who will be staying up. That is my predictions. And I would be really, really interested to see what yours are as well. Until the next show, thank you for joining us, and all the very, very best to all three teams. And whoever does go down, I just hope that you get an instant result return to the Premier League as soon as possible. But thank you for joining us, and thank you as well to the three channels that have contributed.